Hey everyone, and welcome back to Rank and File Sports. And today we're going to be hopping right back into our series where we are predicting every single Power 4 team's record by the start of the college football season. And today it's the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Now, it may seem crazy to say, but with how easy Rutgers got their schedule for the Big Ten, there is a chance that the Scarlet Knights could potentially get an at-large playoff bid if they finish with 10 or 11 wins. And when you look at their schedule, it's not completely out of the question. The first two games are very, very easy with Howard and Akron both at home. And then following the bye week, they have their most difficult non-conference game with Virginia Tech, who a lot of people are very high on. This game is on the road. However, Rutgers is going to get an extra week to prepare for it. Following that is a decently tough game with Washington at home. The Huskies will almost certainly be favored in this one, but definitely don't count Rutgers out. A road trip to Nebraska is also going to be a tough game. Nebraska is supposed to be on the rise this season, and their offense should be much improved as well. Rutgers is more of a ground and pound team, so they have the ability to wear their opponents down, which will match up very well against Wisconsin. This should be a very fun, low-scoring game, and it'll be tough for Rutgers to win because Wisconsin probably has the better defense here, but they will have a shot to win this one for sure. UCLA at home shouldn't be an overly difficult matchup. The Bruins are going to have to travel very, very far for this game. And just overall, Rutgers is a better team than UCLA at this point. A road trip to USC is going to be one of the tougher games on the schedule. However, we aren't quite as high on USC as a lot of other people are. So this game also is still possible for Rutgers to win. Following the second bye week, the schedule gets quite a bit easier, finishing out Big Ten play with Minnesota, a road trip to Maryland, Illinois, and a road trip to Michigan State. All four of these teams should be finishing either towards the middle or bottom half of the Big Ten standings. So these are all very, very winnable games for the Scarlet Knights. Overall, they've got 7 home games and 5 away games, with only 2 of their opponents being ranked in the Rank and File Top 25, giving the Scarlet Knights a schedule difficulty of 3.5 out of 10.
We have one guaranteed win for Rutgers this year, and it's Howard. You can probably imagine why. This is a team that's not even in the FBS. Rutgers is in the Big Ten, which uh, is a sleeper pick for the best conference in college football this year, although we believe it will be the SEC. With that said, though, Rutgers is no longer the laughingstock that they once were. We expect them to be pretty decent in the Big Ten this year, and for that to happen, we don't see a way in which Howard's able to win this game. We have 4 likely wins for the Scarlet Knights this year, and that's Akron, UCLA, Minnesota, and Michigan State. As far as Akron goes, the only reason they're not a guaranteed win for Rutgers is that they are an FBS school, and they are, in one of the better mid-major conferences in the NCAA, in the MAC. Um, and with that, we think that that might give them, that might keep them in the game for, a quarter and a half or a half. Um, and we think that because it's early in the season, that's the only reason why Rutgers won't pull away super early. As far as UCLA goes, UCLA is going to have a very hard time this year in the Big Ten, losing their head coach, who was a good coach, Chip Kelly. He's now the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Um, and this team, they just have a lot of holes on their roster. They have some talent, but a lot of holes on their roster. And Rutgers is a team that will ground and pound against you, and they're not afraid to make games ugly. I'm not so sure that UCLA is capable of that, so we have to give Rutgers a pretty big advantage in this one. As far as Minnesota goes, think of them as a slightly worse, Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin, up until Fickle was hired, before he implemented more of a passing-oriented offense, Wisconsin was very much your ground and pound, play great defense, field position kind of team. Minnesota is exactly that. They have a great offensive and defensive line. They don't beat themselves. But Rutgers under Greg Schiano is essentially that, but a little bit better this season. We think that Rutgers, for that reason, you can't beat a team like Rutgers at its own game. So when you have two very similar teams, you pick the one that's better on paper, and to us, that's Rutgers. And as far as Michigan State goes, Michigan State's having a hard time these past couple seasons. They're bringing in a new coach. They have some talent, but we don't expect them to be able to compete very well in the Big Ten this year. Hence why we have Rutgers winning this game fairly easily. Looking at the toss-ups for Rutgers, they have Nebraska, Maryland, and Illinois. Nebraska is a team that has more talent than Rutgers, but that's always true. And Nebraska has not performed well these past several seasons and has actually been outperformed by Rutgers as of recently. They bring in five-star quarterback Dylan Raiola from Georgia, and their offense will be better because of that. But without just a team that can't beat themselves, Nebraska is prone to that. Especially they were under Scott Frost. They were last year under Matt Rule, even though that was uncharacteristic of a Matt Rule coached football team. But we think that because of their athletes, we trust Rule's ability as a coach. We think Nebraska will be improved. We think this game will be close, and it really could go either team's way. As far as Maryland goes, this is a team that always seems to have great athletes, but they aren't disciplined. They seem to have dumb penalties all the time, and it's tough for them to be able to be consistent as far as we notice. They started off last year very strong and ended the season, in a way that was far from how they started. So we expect, that kind of trend to continue this year as far as the inconsistency is concerned. So that's why they could potentially smoke Rutgers as far as we're concerned, because we do know that their ceiling is fairly high. But the opposite could happen too. So it is a toss-up. It depends on which Maryland team comes to play that day. But on paper, both of these teams are pretty evenly matched. And as far as Illinois goes, the same logic applies, except they are consistent, but they are consistently, middle of the pack of the Big Ten. Rutgers has been that way as well, but the play styles are similar. They both love to ground and pound. They play good defense. They play field position. As far as teams like that are concerned, if you notice a trend, they aren't good at pulling away in close games. So the games tend to be close the whole way, which is why if the game's close in the end, it's anybody's game. Whoever has the ball last will probably win, and that's our thoughts on Illinois. Finally, we have four likely losses for Rutgers this year. We have Virginia Tech, Washington, Wisconsin, and USC. Virginia Tech's been down pretty recently in the ACC, but they usually are a good team, and this year we expect them to get back to their winning ways a little bit. And a team like that in Blacksburg, Virginia, we think Rutgers will have a hard time winning in an environment like that. As far as Washington goes, this team made it to the national championship last year. They did lose their coach to Alabama. They lost their star corner to Oregon. And the one that hurts the most, they lost their quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., to the NFL. So this is far from the Washington team that made it that far in 2023. But they are still Washington. They are still a good offense. They have enough pieces on defense to give Rutgers a hard time. So it will be an uphill battle for them to beat the Huskies. As far as Wisconsin and USC go, these are two teams that are just simply more talented than Rutgers in the sense for specifically Wisconsin, speaking about the line play. The O-line and D-line are terrific. Wisconsin plays good defense, and their offense is more modernized now, so we think that if they're able to score enough, they can hold Rutgers to, a day where they're pretty, hampered on offense. And that's going to make it tough for Rutgers to win. And finally, with USC, USC is consistently one of the most talented teams in the country, yet they consistently underperform. But that last piece of information there about them underperforming shouldn't matter against a team like Rutgers. With no disrespect intended towards Rutgers, we think they'll be a good team. But we think that SC's talent's going to be too much. They score too many points, and if their defense is even slightly improved, it's going to be a real tough day for the Scarlet Knights.
We'll go ahead and move on to the schedule recap, where we have the Knights starting out 2-0 with wins over Howard and Akron. Both of these should be pretty easy wins. We do have them dropping the game to Virginia Tech on the road following their first bye week, but pulling off a home upset against the Washington Huskies. Now, Big Ten play gets a little bit tougher with Nebraska and Wisconsin the following 2 weeks. We have the Knights dropping to 1-2 in Big Ten play. UCLA and USC are both new additions to the conference this season. We like Rutgers to beat UCLA at home, but lose to the Trojans on the road. However, after the second bye week, we like Rutgers to win out. None of those 4 games are very difficult games, and they're all very winnable for Rutgers. Now, if you look at their 4 losses, 3 of them are road trips, 1 of them is that home game against Wisconsin. All 4 of these games are very winnable games for Rutgers. Now, the projected record sits at 6.8 and 5.2, so it's favoring more losses than wins. But if the Scarlet Knights can win the close games, and most of these games that we have them losing should be close games. We don't think they'll go undefeated. They probably won't finish with 1 loss, but there's a decent chance that Rutgers could even finish 10-2 by pulling off a couple upsets. So it's not completely out of the question to have Rutgers as a top 25 team at the end of the season. Now, FPI likes them a little bit closer to 7.2 and 4.8, which favors losing about 5 games, maybe 4, but a lot closer to 5, with a 5.6% chance to make the playoffs and a 0.1% chance to win the national championship. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.